It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
When you think of NBA duos, you might think of Kawhi and PG or LeBron and AD, but the Locked On Podcast Network has Hollinger and ND. It's the Hollinger and Duncan NBA show. Follow now on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or your preferred podcast provider.
Welcome, everybody, to the Locked On Lakers podcast. I'm Anthony Irwin. I'm joined by Pete Zayas. Pete, nice, easy win, huh?
Man, so Anthony and I, we got to organize when we're going to schedule the show. So we'll text each other, when are you free today?
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, well, I've got the game recap. So it may be a few minutes after games because we usually record right after. Yeah. And I was like, oh, well, hopefully Lakers get a nice blowout win and, you'll have all of it written before the final buzzer and we can just start. Ha. Yeah, right. That ever happens with this team, right? Man, it's great. I'm on cloud nine watching a good Lakers team, but fuck, they make it so difficult every game.
I should have screen grabbed the recap that I had before they went on that fourth quarter run, because it was a doozy. I was lighting people on fire.
You're so used to killing the Lakers that you're just
dialed right back in
right now.
Yeah.
No, you're just pent up. You're just ready, just have one just shit game, and I'm just ready to unload on you guys because that's all I know how to do.
Yeah, I have one pitch. I have I have a pretty good fastball. It has some movement on it or whatever, but I have one pitch.
It got you to the show, but yeah, sometimes it can betray you.
I'm working on my curveball, but most of them are winding up 500 feet away from home plate after I throw them. No, it was a fun game. So the Lakers wind up winning 118-112. It was a fun fourth quarter, right? It was not a fun game overall. The experience of it overall was pretty painful, actually. And I don't know. Usually you kind of look back on a game like this, especially right after it happens, before you get to rewatch it or whatever, and you kind of ask yourself, how the fuck did they just win that game? How did that happen? But I feel like it's a pretty simple explanation here. They stopped turning the ball over in the fourth quarter. And that forced the Bulls to play in the half court. Their defense started putting the clamps down on them in the half court. The Lakers were able to get a few easy buckets going the other way in transition, and it just kind of snowballed. And then LeBron came back in with, I think, 8 minutes and 37 seconds to go, and it was over from that point on.
It was this team's ability to do that. We've already talked about it a little bit. Yeah. This is probably the most glaring example because they were down 13 to start the fourth, right? But that is I just tweeted out, you remember how the Warriors, you'd always see this in nationally televised games. It'd be third quarter, 8 minutes left. They're down 62-60. It's been a good back and forth game. And you go to the bathroom or something and the fucking Warriors are up 15. What just happened? This Lakers team, they go about it in a different way, but they've got that in them too.
Well, even that Warriors team, they had to get stops to be able to go on those runs, right?
Right.
Otherwise, you're just swapping buckets. But these Lakers, you can kind of see it. I noticed it for the first time this season on an actual professional athlete where I think it was Troy Daniels got the ball on the wing and Kawhi rotated over to him, and he was in isolation. Usually NBA players, their eyes light up, oh, shit, I got the ball in isolation. It's my time to shine. And then he saw Kawhi was in front of him. He's like, fuck.
Right.
And the entire Chicago Bulls team tonight, in that fourth quarter, every time there was rotation or whatever, that entire fourth quarter, they spent the whole thing slumped because there was nothing easy. Nothing was coming easy.
The Lakers defend like they got six guys on the court when they're really locked in. And that lineup it was Caruso. Cook was a surprise contributor in that fourth quarter on both ends. So Cook's the weak link defensively. But the other four guys, Caruso, LeBron, AD, and Howard, that is a monster defensive unit right there. And especially if, they come back and it's Avery Bradley there, where it's Danny Green will have minutes there. Lakers can trot out a very serious five-man group on the defensive end. And that's, hopefully we get Iguodala at some point, would add to what's already a real strength.
Yeah, I want to, before we get into some of the minutia of the game, because I do think there's a couple things that really stood out to me over the course of it that like you're saying, that lineup, for example, like Caruso, he hasn't been good offensively. He hasn't been. But he goes out there, and it's just defensive play after defensive play after defensive play. His hands are everywhere. He's always in the right spot, and it makes the team better around him, right? I think we've kind of seen that a little bit with KCP to a vastly underrated extent, where just defensively, he does the right things, and it makes up for the disaster that he can be on the offensive end. And I really think that the theme of tonight was going to be, or is, and the takeaway is going to be, the Lakers' identity is going to be on the defensive end. And if they play lackadaisically there, that sets a tone that I think kind of carries over to their offensive end, because their offense isn't good enough to carry their defense if it has to. And I thought tonight was the example to hammer that point home.
Yeah, that's something that's always going to be how this is sparked. And it's funny how the three-point shooting really comes along when there's that liveliness on the defensive end. All of a sudden, like, Quinn Cook's making that open corner three as opposed to the ones he'd been missing for the rest of the game. So, yeah, those types of that's always going to be what triggers it for this group, especially with just the defensive talent that they have. They are so smart on their rotations. You got a bunch of really smart guys, and you got a bunch of athletic freaks who have been doing it long enough to know exactly where they're supposed to be. Like, they're not going to lock in for the whole game. Although I want to give a shout out to LeBron, because he was the one guy bringing it in those first three quarters. Not just because he had numbers, but he was really playing with an intensity that nobody else was matching, including the role players who usually do. Yeah. And that game would have been a 25 point game if LeBron didn't play the way that he did through the first three quarters to even put them in the position that they were in.
On both ends, too. His defense remains one of the undercovered things. And it's funny because, with LeBron, it's become kind of a fun little needle to poke at him, his defense over the last few years, and, fairly so in most cases. But this season, for some reason, as that swung back around, I don't think it's getting nearly enough attention to the extent that it should, how good he's been defensively this year.
Yeah.
Let's take a quick second here. When we come back, Diane, when we come back, I want to talk about Kyle Kuzma. I want to talk about Anthony Davis. I want to talk about Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee. That point was again hammered home tonight. Plenty of stuff to get to. So hang tight. We'll come back and we'll continue to have fun with. Today's show is brought to you in part by MyBookie. MyBookie.ag is the best place to win and then get paid quickly. And tonight's show, or as I have been doing so far in supporting MyBookie, I'm going to look around, find a bet that I kind of like or really like, and talk about it for a second. And if you guys are interested in joining me in betting this, head on over to mybookie.ag, use the promo code LOCKEDONNBA, and you will double the cash input that you throw in there. So the bet that I'm looking at right now, it's kind of cheating, but I'm going to take it anyway. Milwaukee in LA to play the Clippers. Kawhi Leonard is sitting out with load management. As it stands right now, you have Milwaukee getting a point against a team that's going to try to guard Giannis Antetokounmpo with, Patrick Patterson. Take that bet, make that bet on over at mybookie.ag. Use promo code LOCKEDONNBA. MyBookie is the best place to place bets, win money, and then collect that money as quickly as possible. And that's the point of all this. So go on over to mybookie.ag, sign up using promo code LOCKEDONNBA, double your cash, and join me on these bets that we're going to be making throughout the season. That's mybookie.ag. You play, you win, you get paid.
Hey, it's Noah Kozlov from Rejecting the Screen, and this week, former Grizzlies VP of Basketball Operations John Hollinger, co-host of Hollinger and Duncan here on Locked On, told a story of Tony Allen being in Klay Thompson's head during the 2015 playoffs.
He had done such a good job in the first three games, though, and had done such a good job against Klay historically, that early in that game, Klay Thompson comes off a pin down, catches the ball, and he is just wide open. And his first thing goes off in his head is, well, wait, where's Tony? He turns and looks behind him 180 degrees because he figured that's where Tony Allen had to be. Like he figured Tony had to be around somewhere. He was wide open. He just turned and looks directly behind him. Like, where is this guy? Where is he coming from?
Join Adam Stanko and me every Tuesday and Thursday by subscribing to Rejecting the Screen, wherever you get your podcasts.
All right, we're back here with Pete Zayas of Spectrum Sportsnet.
I'm like, why is he saying my name?
Congratulations, bud.
Hey, can I take a second? Like, I feel like
of course.
I feel like I have the compulsion to like give a like I just want an Oscar speech or something.
You should.
I don't say thank you enough for just what you and Harrison, but also like the listeners and the people who follow me on Twitter and on YouTube and all that. Like, this is it's an absolute dream come true. Mm-hmm. You know, I hope you can imagine. Like, I was working. I'd set up a business for my now ex-girlfriend, and it was a psychological practice in which most of the patients were kids. And my office was basically the toy closet. I was in this just tiny room, and by my choice, right? Like, but
you had your red stapler?
Like, I had my red stapler, just working a job. Like, it was for her and it was for us, right? You do those things as an adult you make sacrifices, right? It's not what I wanted to do for a living, but it's what we needed, right? And so I was just bored in this little room, just being like really missing basketball. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I just started doing this, and it was never some grand plan or anything like that, but I've always stayed true to the things that I love about it and refused to do the things that I don't, even though that they might be more conventional. And the fact that you guys have supported me to the extent that you have to get to this point, like, I feel every bit of love, and I feel people rooting for me in a way that I never imagined. It's weird to be like in your late 30s and all of a sudden you're this guy, like this like D-list internet celebrity that's like, oh, I guess like I've got like 35 plus years of just being just some dude, right? And no, mind you, I'm still motivated by the content. That's what I love, and I hope that shines through to everybody. But I don't want to act like, oh, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I get support or not. Of course it does. I wouldn't be here without Locked On Lakers, without Lakers Reddit, without Twitter, without Lakers Ground. Just all of the people over the years who have supported me. Just thank you so much. You know, this is the start of something really cool with Spectrum. I'm going to be working to get access to different angles and just like ways to make it cooler, because that's Fort Knox for that stuff, man. If I like playing around with footage, they got it, you know what I mean? And so I'm basically every day like, please let me have this angle of this play, you know. And hopefully I win some of those battles, and they've been great. They've been so great. But just to everybody, thank you so much.
I mean, if I could just add quickly that, like, one of the things you and I always talk about, one of the things you and I have always talked about is that for us, we aren't traditional people. We didn't go to Northwestern. We didn't go to Syracuse. We don't have those journalism majors or anything like that. We just worked our asses off and somehow found a niche for ourselves, found a little crack in the door, and then have just repeatedly just punched on that door until it continued to open up further. And what stuff like your success does, the success of this show, what that does is for the next, kind of group, next generation of people who feel like they have to come make it in this industry by only the traditional ways, like, we can stand here and say, no, man, that's not true. Create content the way you want to create it, because at the end of the day, the passion that shines through something that you want to create, the way that you want to cover this team, that's what's going to take you further. And I think that's the thing that respect you most about. The thing I'm proudest about is the fact that you have remained you from day one to now. And I know moving forward, you are going to remain the same dude who gets angry at me for offering you water shots at every step along the way. But congratulations, buddy. I couldn't be happier for a better person.
Thank you so much, Anthony, and everyone listening. Thank you, guys.
All right, let's awkwardly segue back over to the game. I want to talk about Kyle Kuzma.
Okay.
One of the things I have really noticed in the moments that he has looked bad, and like the majority of the time he's been on a basketball court this season, he has looked bad. But the reason I think he has looked bad is because I still don't quite I don't think the Lakers understand how best to utilize him. Or I think a more charitable way to say that is that they don't want to impede on another player's role in order to utilize Kuzma the way that I feel like you have to utilize Kuzma. And so far, as an example, so far this season, Danny Green has been doing a lot of running off screens and handoffs, and you're asking Danny Green to dribble, which, like, if Klay Thompson dribbles like a Republican, that's Ted Cruz out there and Danny Green. and so, like, if for Danny, I think for Green, I think what he needs to be is more of a stationary shooter. And I don't know if it's a matter of the Lakers want him to be one thing and he wants to be one thing and what he's better at is something else. But tonight, I thought when Kuzma got it going, he was catching the ball on the move. And it's tough to design plays for a guy to be on the move because they then have to capitalize on those plays. Otherwise, those are wasted sets. But I felt like when he really got it going, it was because he was catching the ball on the move. And I think that's how he's going to develop his role moving forward this season.
There were two parts about Kuzma getting on track in that fourth quarter. First, even before that point about him getting on the move, because that's the second part, is he was on the floor without either AD or LeBron. Mm-hmm. And it was just very clear that he needs to be the scorer in this lineup. And I thought Vogel was just trying to steal a few minutes. You know, hey, if we can keep it in this 8 to 10 range.
It looked like it was that stretch where a coach decides whether or not they're going to keep trying to win.
Right. Like you guys have 4 minutes to make this decision for me. That's exactly what it was. And so putting Kuz in that position where it was rather uncomplicated what his role was, and then Vogel uncomplicated the actions within that role in that they started moving him off of those stagger screens and those wide pin downs like you were talking about. That's the one thing that, like, that first part, like, who's going to have to figure it out while next to LeBron or D and both next to both of them in terms of like how he fits in. And that was always going to be a thing, right? He's starting a little bit later since he missed preseason and training camp in the beginning of the regular season. But that was always going to be something that he had to kind of figure out. And so that's natural. I'm not tripping on Kuz in that respect. But Vogel put him in a position to come off of those screens. And he's the one guy, and he showed it in that run, who can hit the pull-up jump shot without putting the ball on the ground. He can drive and attack the closeout, or if they switch it and he gets a mismatch, he can drive, and he's got that great floater game, right-handed floaters off his right foot. Like, those are such hard shots, and he's really good at them. I think he's a top 5 to 10 guy in the NBA on those types of shots. So that's like all three things you need to do off of that. All the other guys that we normally run off of that, with KCP. Green, even though KCP, Avery Bradley's run off of a lot of screens, they can do one or the other, but not really both. And so Kuzma being put into that, along with not sharing the court with LeBron and AD, really made him look again like, oh, that's the Kuz that I remember from his first couple of seasons.
Yeah, I liked tonight's version of Kuzma, and obviously, like, he played better. So yes, I'm going to like this version of Kuzma more than any other version of Kuzma that we've seen so far this season. But getting him on the move, it's just so. One of my gripes back in the day with the Vikings was that when they had Adrian Peterson, it was either run up the middle to a completely stacked box or pass, right? And it was never, and my thing was always, wait, why not play action from time to time, sneak him behind the linebackers and let him catch the ball on the move? Like, why not try some of that stuff out? And then we see it a lot more in like modern football nowadays. You see a lot more of like play action, getting the quarterback on the move and hitting your running back while they already have a head of steam ahead of them. And I felt like that same kind of concept here with Kyle Kuzma can really apply, where let this guy, because when you catch the ball on the move, the defense is also rotating towards you. Whereas if you're asking a guy who has missed now months before these last 3 games, not been able to play for quite some time, you're asking that guy to catch the ball stationary on a wing against a defense that is also stationary with all of their eyes facing him. That's just not going to go well.
Especially if your ball handling isn't great. Like, Kuz is okay for his size as a ball handler, but he's not really a guy that's breaking guys down off the dribble.
No, and so I really enjoyed that aspect of his game. And look, I don't think the Lakers get back into the game if they don't go to that run with Kuzma there. They don't start utilizing him the way that they had to. The game would have been decided in the other direction, and LeBron wouldn't have come back in. Anthony Davis wouldn't have come back in, and the Lakers probably walk away with a loss. So credit to Kuzma for keeping his head up and producing when he absolutely had to. I just hope that they look at what made him successful tonight and continue to use that moving forward. Let's take another quick second here. When we come back, I still want to talk about Dwight Howard. He did some things again tonight that just continue to show the steps that he's taking to get back and be fully healthy. I do want to talk about Anthony Davis, both on and off the court. So we have plenty of stuff to get to. Let's take a quick second. When we come back, we'll get to all of that.
When you're finished with today's episode, the Locked On Podcast Network has an amazing national show lineup for you. Every Monday, the new Hollinger and Duncan NBA show brings you insight from former NBA executive and analytics guru John Hollinger. Rejecting the Screen brings you 2 episodes a week with fun NBA talk and a long-form interview every Thursday. Your daily 30-minute NBA show is Locked On NBA, updating you on the previous night's action and looking ahead to what's next. The Locked On Podcast Network All-Star National Lineup, Hollinger and Duncan NBA Show, Rejecting the Screen, and Locked On NBA. Your team.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On Warriors.
You are Locked On Bucks.
Locked On Raptors.
Locked On Nuggets podcast.
Every day.
On Monday.
It's Taco Tuesday!
On this Wednesday.
Thursday looks great. Starting this Friday.
When it comes to the biggest stories.
The leading storyline to watch for.
A couple things from the preseason have kind of piqued my interest even more in terms of how good this team can be.
Draymond spoke with the media after the game, and I thought he had the right outlook when it comes to this.
Yeah, that, means precisely nothing in the grand scheme of winning a championship, I guess, but...
You need to be Locked On.
That is LOCKEDON.
Wherever you get your podcasts.
In the Apple Podcast app.
Google Podcasts.
Spotify.
It's all coming up on today's edition of Locked On Jazz. Ow!
Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
So yet another game, yet another opportunity for Dwight Howard to do the things that Dwight Howard has done so far. You look at his line. He finishes the game a +4 on the night. 5 fouls, 6 points, 6 boards, 1 block. And if I was just to give you that line for anybody else, you'd say, I mean, okay, right?
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah.
All right, I guess that's a backup big. But again, I just feel like the Lakers, we see this with certain players that their teammates really seem like their success really seems to resonate to a further extent with their teammates than other players. Lonzo Ball had some of this over the beginning of his career. I think D'Angelo Russell had this in Brooklyn, right? And then obviously like LeBron is the example of it because like as he goes, all of his guys are going to go.
Oh, like people kind of pick up on their energy, the teammates. Yeah, I get where you're going. Yeah,
and I really felt like so Dwight. His first 3 quarters or so were pretty whatever. They were pretty pedestrian. But in that fourth quarter, he had multiple possessions. So one of them was on, I believe, Kobe White, where he stayed in front of him and then blocked his shot out of bounds, rolled over on top of him, got up, yelled at the crowd and all that stuff. Like, that's the kind of thing that, and you look over at the bench and they're all going nuts. He had another possession where Otto Porter was trying to shake him, and he was forced into like a deep three-pointer that barely drew iron. And it's those kinds of things that I really feel like the Lakers, like, I would like for them to be able to benefit from that earlier in the game than they have so far this season. He doesn't play at all in the first quarter, and I think that stuff has to change. I think you got to start getting him into the game a little bit earlier, because I feel like that kind of lackadaisical energy to the game, I really feel like he would help address some of that.
I think the Lakers need a certain sense of urgency. I don't think, especially with as many veterans as we have, they're necessarily looking at this on a game-by-game basis, but rather how do we get through the marathon of 82 and be good going into the playoffs? And LeBron has done that before. AD's done that on playoff teams, but not high-level ones. Dwight's gone all the way to the finals. A lot of the key guys on this team, even your Quinn Cooks and Avery Bradleys, these are guys who have gone through the grind enough times to know that, like, it doesn't matter if you're leading the marathon after the first 2 miles. And so I think what they're trying to do is play it just like this certain baseline, and then just give it their all for like I think that's what Vogel was trying to set up. And then the bench surprised everybody. But when he took both LeBron and AD out of the game and we're down 13 to start the fourth, that could very easily be like 18 in a minute and a half, right? And none of us would be surprised if it was. But what I think Vogel was trying to do was like, all right, we've got the clip loaded for the last 6 minutes of this game. And if we're down 12, we're going to put our best lineup, and that best lineup's going to go as hard as they possibly can. Now, that bench lineup went on a run, and then that lineup, when LeBron and AD came back, continued it by putting their foot on the gas pedal. But I think that's what's going on. And with Dwight, I think I'm kind of in a place where it's like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Like, don't fuck with his minutes or anything like that. But like, do you have any concerns with that, with like a lack of continuity and changing his role, things like that? So I understand the people who do come from that kind of place, but I also feel like that's a bit of I don't know if that's a good enough reason to hold back from what could very obviously help the team, right? So like I look, JaVale just hasn't had it. I thought JaVale, like, this was the best game he's played so far. It was. He had the dumbest damn turnover you
Oh my God, the one that led to the three-pointer?
Yes, it's just such a... And especially it was like, all right, you guys are starting to play some good defense. All right, got ourselves a stop. Let's go. Oh, wait, no, that's turnover. That's bad. Oh, no, that's a three. Like, this all happens in like 2 seconds, right? So, yeah, but he played well tonight. Sorry.
It was his best game so far. I think it was, it is the only game he's played so far and finished with a positive plus-minus. He was a +1.
Okay.
The Lakers, I'm sick of seeing them kind of trudge through the first quarter when I feel like you could take care of. So if it is a total energy expended topic, right? If that's what we're talking about here, then why not come out, beat the piss out of a team, and coast the rest of the way with a lead versus having to rely on playing way harder than you might necessarily have to later in the game?
I think that takes a collective focus that, like, I don't think it's a Dwight or JaVale thing, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
I guess.
Is that, like, the team is not locked in. And I agree that, like, they're better when Dwight's on the court. I don't necessarily know if they're going to come out of the locker room, everybody like, all right, guys, let's all kick some ass and let's go on that 29-4 run now to start the game instead of in the freaking fourth quarter, right, when we've all played 30 minutes already. Like, I guess the issue that you want to address, I don't know if Dwight addresses that, even though he's a better fit, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Maybe just fewer JaVale minutes at the beginning of a game.
That's like substitute Kuz in early or something.
Yeah, something like just I don't know. I feel like the Lakers have to do something, because I don't think we saw Dwight till like 4 minutes into the second quarter.
No, he started the second quarter. He did that in the San Antonio game as well. Yeah.
I felt like he might not have, but okay.
Maybe I'm wrong.
Either way, I mean, we can go back and see. We record these right after, and this is the benefit of doing that.
Right. It's like, oh, hold on.
But yeah, I just, you kind of look at him. He played 24 minutes, and JaVale played 17. I think that's the proper dispersal there. I would just like to see it a little earlier because I do think he does kind of address some of the energy. Like, the concern here is energy and commitment to defense early on. Mm-hmm. And I do think, like, there is no player on the Lakers who sets that tone better than Dwight does.
Dwight reminds me of, like, not a middle reliever in baseball, but one of the, like, last, like, your eighth inning guy.
Yeah, setup.
Your setup guy, where it's like he's going to throw 100 miles an hour and it's going to have some nasty ass movement on it. And, like, he can only throw like 15 of those pitches, but good friggin' luck hitting one of those 15 pitches, right? Like an elite setup guy. Like, to me, 24 minutes seems like too many minutes, in my opinion. In terms of, like, I don't want him playing that 24 minutes a game throughout the season just for the sake of health, because I want him to be able to have that massive impact that he's been having.
Yeah, I think he would have played fewer minutes if Anthony Davis didn't float his way through the game.
That's a good point.
I want to talk about Anthony Davis. We'll finish on this. Everything to this point has been positive. So if you guys don't want to hear anything negative,
and Anthony's just dying. He just doesn't know how to do anything else. We've covered this earlier in the pod. Anthony just has to get this out. So either tune out now or...
You talked about setup men with one pitch, dude. You were describing me.
All right, everyone, enjoy Anthony complaining. Can we just save our bitching and moaning for, like, when they actually lose? They're going to actually lose one of these dumbass games where
they're not.
Play
they're
like
81-1. No, so I have a couple gripes here with Davis. And I think right from the get-go, I thought his comments yesterday were perfectly fine. Did you see the comments? We haven't addressed them on this.
Much ado about nothing, man.
It was nothing, right? It was nothing. He made it endlessly worse today. Endlessly worse. When he was like, I didn't say that, I swear. My dude, there was video. Come on.
I think that's similar to last year. Remember when he made his trade demand and like it was all like, oh, he's not going to Boston. And then he goes on NBA TV and he's like, I have 29 teams on my list. Like, come on, man.
or when he wore the "That's All Folks" shirt.
And
I
didn't dress myself.
And then said, I didn't dress myself. Anthony.
You might be a politician one day.
I was in charge of writing that article for Silver Screen and Roll today, and I said, like, to quote my wife, after I do something really stupid at a party that I've had too many margaritas at, you wake up and Jen says, Anthony, we have video. Like, Anthony.
AD went with the straight up, like, shaggy defense.
Yeah, deny till you die.
It wasn't me.
I'm not going to go so far as to say that it leaked into his game or anything like that. It's that this was way too little a story for that to actually happen. I do kind of wonder, and I would like to look up his stats when he plays in Chicago usually. Some pros have said that, it's just you're arranging tickets for family, you're back home, there's a few extra butterflies in your stomach because you want to put on a show for the hometown crowd, whatever. So maybe that was what was going on. But and this is such an obvious point that maybe I don't have to make it, but Davis can't play like he played tonight. It's not just like the 6 of 15 and the 4 personal fouls, whatever. It was, he floated so much out there. He was so non-committal about playing it. It was kind of tough to watch.
Yeah, I mean, you want to be real for a moment?
Yeah.
That's why he's not considered the best player in the league.
That's fine.
Is that mentality? No, that's what I'm saying. Is like, this is part of, as wonderful as it's been to have him and as good as he is, right? We're talking Western Conference Player of the Week. That tendency to float, he's more naturally talented than Giannis is in terms of skill. Probably. Like, he's got better touch. He's more fluid. Mm-hmm. Giannis is more powerful than AD is, but I would argue that Giannis brings it. like and like wants to mess you up on a night-to-night basis in a way that AD like only sort of has, and compared to other superstars doesn't have. And like I just want to be real, like I've loved watching him, but that is something that attribute is going to show up at an important part of the season later, and how he reacts to that is really going to be a big part of determining whether or not we get past that hurdle or if that's where we lose.
Yeah. Because this is the kind of front court that he should have dominated. Lauri Markkanen. I like Wendell Carter Jr. a lot, but come on, he's still young and he's still undersized. And there were some stretches where like Tomas Satoransky or whatever his name is was like switched onto him, and I think Cornette, some dude named Cornette, would like blocked his shot one time.
Professional basketball person Anthony Irwin. You do Locked On NBA too, right?
Sometimes. Adam's the smart guy there.
Okay.
But
all right.
What people are going to find out someday is that I just latch on to smart people, and they make me they make my life way easier. But
bro, you know what? Sorry to interject. At the end of Chick's career, if you're old enough to remember, Chick would butcher the hell out of players' names.
He called Derek Fisher Shaq one time.
Yeah, no, it would always be like, what would he always call Shaq? I'm blanking now. One of the listeners, please, if you're old enough to remember, he would always like butcher Shaq's name in the same way, but it was close. And that's usually he would be like LeBron Jones or something. I mean, LeBron came after.
I want to say it was like Shaquille or something like that.
Yeah,
he added just added a letter that didn't have to be there or wasn't supposed to be there.
Yeah, that was Chick. I don't even remember where I was going with all that. I'm all excited, but yes, like it was like he was the king of the Lakers media universe, and like he'd start like fucking up, and like you could hear Stu kind of like, how do I correct him without? Anyway, good memories.
So what you're saying is I'm as good as like right before he retired Chick Hearn.
That's the point of my rambling story. Man, the Spectrum shit's got me all messed up. I'm like in a way on this pod. Sorry, guys.
But yeah, I think tonight was the kind of game, and it's good that it happened A, in a win, obviously, and B, early enough in the season that maybe LeBron can pull him aside and be like, hey, we can't have that shit when the games really start mattering and we start playing better teams. So that's what I'm kind of hoping for.
That was LeBron has a few of those too, though. LeBron can drift in games that don't matter. That's not something that, I mean.
Well, and then Frank Vogel, with all the respect he has in the locker room, can pull LeBron aside.
What I'm saying, Anthony, is like we're going to lose some games because of exactly those things.
Yeah.
Right? Exactly those things. It's going to happen. It's going to be all right. I've already seen enough to be like, this is a good team. Even if they lost tonight, right? It'd be like, all right, this is what a good team looks like. I remember this.
Yeah. I would not have been happy losing this game.
Of course,
I would not have been. Not like it's like it goes without saying, but that kind of a loss would have really sucked because I was hoping this would be a slightly different Lakers team than the one I've grown up with my entire life that fucks around with the Chicago Bulls when they don't have to. I was hoping this would be somewhat different just because they're so much more talented at the top. But
I bet you think our 3-point shooters are going to start making shots.
Hell no.
At some point too, right?
No.
Quick, 3 out of 4 tonight. Good job.
All right, that'll do it for this episode. A fun episode of the Locked On Lakers podcast. We weren't able to get to questions, so I'll probably do some of that tomorrow. So make sure you guys get them in the form of a 5-star review, and we'll continue to answer those. Lakers wind up winning 118-112. They stay atop the NBA for record overall this season, or at least tied for it. So that's always good to see. Fun game coming up Friday against the Miami Heat, who have surprised thus far as well. But you know what? I think the Lakers should be able to take care of business again at home with a few days off. Thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you, Pete, for hopping on. Have a great rest of your day. Make somebody else's. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
What's up, everybody? I'm William, the Opinion Updike.
And I'm Positive Chuck Mockler.
And we host the Locked On Clippers podcast.
Two best friends give you all Clippers everything every single weekday.
We know a little bit, but have a lot to say, so get ready for some real talk from real fans.
Find us on Twitter and Facebook at Locked On Clippers, and tune in Monday through Friday for up-to-date content about the best basketball team in Los Angeles.
Well, aren't they kind of
No, we're the best one.
Locked On Clippers, local experts on the biggest stories in the NBA.